Back home on the political front today, the spotlight was on the opposition after Coalition leader Tony Abbott declined 3 times to back his shadow treasurer's 9-point plan for a more competitive banking system before finally rectifying the matter. Mr Hockey also appeared to be the target for some false and damaging leaking from a colleague on how his plan had been received in the party room. Adding to that is the escalating war of words between former Prime Minister John Howard and his deputy Peter Costello as they both strive to cement their conflicting versions of history. Political editor Heather Hewitt.
Has he captured John for you?
Look, I'd rather not be an art critic. You know, I'm a politician, not a critic.
Good to see that. Yeah, you got a few fans.
Hello. Together again, the past and present Liberal leaders got some unexpected star treatment for the unveiling of John Howard's official portrait at Parliament House.
Gee.
For Tony Abbott, being with his great mentor may well have offered a welcome break from the trials of being opposition leader.
What's happened? You're out of customers this morning.
It hadn't been a great start to the day, with the media pouncing on his repeated failure at a doorstop to embrace his shadow treasurer's 9-point plan to encourage banking competition.
Do you support Mr Hockey's 9-point plan?
I think it's very important, very, very important, that we expose the weakness and the bluster of this government when it comes to the banks and when it comes to increasing interest rates, which are putting pressure on small business.
So you can't say
it's increasing interest rates?
Look, I've dealt with that issue. If there are other questions, I'll have other questions.
3 times he'd knocked back the chance to back the plan. This is hardly make or break stuff, but not a good look on such a sensitive issue. Realising belatedly he'd have to mop up the mess of his own making, Tony Abbott phoned into various radio stations.
I fully support the 9-point plan. I think it's very important, and I think that the government ought to take it up as soon as possible.
Now, I have to ask, why didn't you just say that originally when I asked you? You did have about 3 opportunities.
Look, you know what it's like in these doorstops. You've got a lot on your mind.
But at the portrait unveiling, the issue simply wasn't going away.
That was all just a bit of a misunderstanding this morning with the 9-point plan.
Come on. I have this instinct to. I have this instinct to talk.
It's a good instinct. Go with it.
Claire does her best to restrain it, and I'm going to be restrained.
You rang 2GB saying that you misunderstood the question and you had a lot on your mind this morning. Is that fair? Cat got your tongue.
After Tony Abbott's tightly disciplined election campaign, the signs of a long, hard political year are starting to show. Politicians on all sides feel in need of a break, but the business of Parliament goes on, and slips like Tony Abbott's today will always get media attention and take on a life of their own.
Why do you think Tony Abbott wouldn't endorse your 9-point plan this morning?
He did.
Well, he didn't after being asked 3 times.
He did.
When?
He did. Let me say this. I am not backing down one iota in challenging the banks to have greater competition.
The opposition leader, Mr Abbott, was asked 3 times this morning whether he supported what Mr Hockey had to say about the banks. And of course, Mr Abbott couldn't bring himself to do it. Now, if Mr Abbott can't even bring himself to support a policy that has been announced by his shadow treasurer might as well give the game away.
The Leader of the Opposition apparently has a lot on his mind. Well, I'm not sure what's on his mind, Mr Speaker, but it's certainly not a plan for economic reform.
While the government, predictably enough, made the most of the ammunition handed to it, the opposition had another media mess to sort out. A front-page story in the Australian newspaper suggesting Joe Hockey was strongly criticised by his shadow cabinet colleagues on Monday for proposing a coalition government would use levers to have an influence on bank interest rates.
Julie Bishop has apparently told Joe Hockey not to trash the coalition's economic credentials. Are you concerned about that?
I was in all of the meetings on Monday and Tuesday, and I just never heard that comment. I never heard that comment at all.
I consulted widely and I was at those meetings, and I'm sorry to say to you, Patricia, but it's a fact that what was reported today was a fiction.
If the report is fictitious, why would somebody leak it? Is there something else at play here?
I don't know.
There's a rat in the ranks somewhere who's made a damaging assessment of the Shadow Cabinet meeting and leaked it. At least that's the view of many of those present. They argue it's an unfair characterisation of what went on at the meeting, though no one denies the issue was discussed. In the Parliament today, Joe Hockey was ploughing on, highlighting the NAB's latest profits and posing this question to the Treasurer.
Given the Treasurer has now given 32 warnings to the banks, I ask the Treasurer, will he accept the recommendation of the ACCC, which is supported by the Coalition, and put in place legislation to prevent price signalling?
The government is absolutely committed to making our banking system and indeed our economy as competitive as possible, Mr. Speaker. And I think I do think there's been a degree of sense in some of the suggestions that have been made by the chairman of the Mr. Speaker, by the chairman of the Mr. Speaker, by the chairman of the ACCC, Mr. Speaker. And it wasn't, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm sorry, but it wasn't. It wasn't a suggestion or an original thought, Mr. Speaker, of those opposite at all.
Over at the National Press Club, John Howard was busily promoting his book, Lazarus Rising, and making his first appearance there since his defeat. He offered this assessment of how Joe Hockey measured up against the man John Howard has termed best ever Treasurer, Peter Costello.
Oh, well, I don't think he's in that league at present. No, of course not. But he hasn't had a chance at the job. If we can win an election, he gets a chance at the job. But I can only talk of established form. I think Joe's doing a good job. I think this thing about the banks is overhyped by his critics. I don't hear him saying we should reimpose regulated interest rates. I mean, that was all dealt with 25 years ago. Read my book.
Peter Costello has read it and doesn't like what he sees. In a damning critique published by Fairfax newspapers this morning, he challenges John Howard's claims of a retirement plan and says the former Prime Minister was never going to leave the top job voluntarily. He also accuses John Howard of being unwilling to share the glory of his government's achievements.
I read the article this morning. I understand Peter's feelings, and I say that very sincerely. The only observation I want to make about his column this morning is that it's not right to say that I've tried to hog all the glory. I may remind you that in my concession speech on the 24th of November 2007, I said I accepted total responsibility for the government's defeat.
That's never going to be good enough for the man who thought he had a deal to take John Howard's place. Like the ongoing verbal stoush between former Labor leaders Bob Hawke and Paul Keating, this too can never be resolved. Still, its public airing is one the Liberal Party could do without.
Political editor Heather Ewart.